Greetings! Today's talk is in Alexandria, Virginia, and we've kind of chosen a location where we get an opportunity to have a really nice view. The challenge is the sunlight orientation is not good, but it is an awesome site. This was kind of the first capital of the United States, and I think I'll go with the best sunlight direction to start, and then we'll take a look at the video at the end. Today's talk focuses on Tesla's, the Tesla top secret China edition. Today's talk focuses on Tesla and top secret China plan for the Semi. We also take a look at the Model 3 ramp, and we also have some comments when we look at what we've discussed as AP2 and sort of reviewing best practices with you again on that. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe. Ooh, I want to make sure I control it here, Jerry. Please take time to like and subscribe. Your likes actually have a huge impact, which is it determines how we're ranked and whether or not any of the videos that we produce are seen. So any likes are always appreciated. Also wanted to note we have a Patreon site and could use your assistance in that regard. And we also are always open to your recommendations, etc. We were not supposed to be here on Sunday. For those of you who are joining it, this is wow, good idea. Thanks for all the tips, Jerry. Good morning, everyone. As you know, I have difficulty on whether or not I can include how and when I can respond to everybody's commentary, and I appreciate your indulgence in working with us as we float through different locations to increase the quality of our view and experience. So we did a talk on Friday focused on the fact that there was about to be the beginning of production by Tesla in China. So when I first heard about this a year and a half ago, what came up was the fact that how can Tesla be building in China when they barely have enough money to complete what they're doing in the United States? And the answer, China has a huge pollution problem, and they've decided that they're going to work as hard as possible in every way to force anyone manufacturing cars within the country to move heavily towards electric. So it's a very interesting situation because, bottom line, Tesla didn't have the money to go to China, but China wanted Tesla, and the money is not an issue. So it's quite simple. If you go for a 0% to 1% loan to Tesla to help them build out that factory, Tesla has plenty of money to use those resources to garner all the materials necessarily, mostly in China, but as we know, the supply chain for Tesla is heavily German influenced, and there's also US companies that are supplying them. So one of the step-throughs of this conversation focuses on the fact that right now, because of the mandate China has, they have a situation happening where they have huge pollution problems, and they've decided they're going to address that. One way to address is the fact that now there are actually 200 different companies in China that are making electric vehicles. In addition, they have multiple producers of lithium-ion batteries, one of which, it turns out, the Nissan Leaf and other manufacturers, Renault in Europe, are starting to use. So I was surprised to learn of this because I thought Korea was really dominating this business when Panasonic wasn't. But China is coming up in battery production. One of the detail points about the electric revolution is that over-the-road long-haul trucks represent 5% of the vehicles on the roadways, and this is the numbers I believe for the US, but they represent 25% of the pollution, the impact of the diesel engines on those spaces. So as we move towards there being a new gigafactory in China as we move towards Tesla showing up there strong, one of the weird questions that comes up is Tesla, the number one destination for sales of Tesla is actually China. I believe between Hong Kong and the rest of mainland China, they already have, I believe, 200 charging stations. They have 24 stores. So Tesla has a very large China footprint already. And one of the issues that had popped up is, why didn't Tesla simply make a few extra of all the vehicles they're making and just ship them to China and we're done with it? And the answer is that the Chinese are determined to cut aggressively and as fast as possible into their pollution issues. So with all this in mind, what I thought was really fascinating is the fact that while China has huge numbers of entities that are producing, I apologize for the jet noise here, I seem to have a knack for that one. So while China has hundreds of manufacturers of cars, most of them in the 100-mile range or down, they have only one major manufacturer of trucks. So what this introduces us to is the fact that if China does want to cut the pollution, they're going to have to get into trucks and get those trucks on the road as soon as possible. So one of the things we talked about in our last video was the fact that there's no doubt there'll be a manufacturing plant from Tesla ready to go in 1 year if China is doing their part, which is 0% interest on the money being used to build that plant. Now, where the highest value is for Tesla to build is actually to make China a fairly large builder of their truck products. That way, China can get after how long-haul trucking is influencing how much pollution is being blown into the air and killing people off within China. And that's where the Tesla secret semi plan comes into play. So it's my belief that all of the time frames it took to build out the Tesla product within the United States, so that the Model 3 plant took a year and a quarter to build. In the case of the gigafactory, it's a 3-year assignment. I believe China will have all of these completed in half the time, because once they're on an initiative, the work which they're willing to do is way amazing. So bottom line, what I'm anticipating will occur is that I believe China will be ready with their new gigafactory for Tesla at the end of next year, so a year and a half from now. And that's because they're going to move heaven and earth to get the Tesla truck on the road as fast as possible. One of the things we have not covered is, now wait a second, if Tesla is able to build a new factory, both gigafactory and a factory, in a year and a half at zero cost, what does this mean for revenue to Tesla? Well, I think what it means is that we could see a doubling of Tesla's revenue from these initiatives, without a problem. And that's pretty mind-blowing that for little or no cash, Tesla gets the opportunity to double revenue, and that's just in the next 2 years. If that partnership works well, it's very easy to see this expanding into a multiple gigafactory, multiple manufacturing plant situation if all goes as planned. So I'm fascinated by this. The note that you guys are posting about what about the IP challenges related to this, that is an open question, which is how does Tesla keep the non-patented information that they have not shared with the Chinese out of Chinese hands and result in them being huge competitors going forward. So I think it's definitely a challenge, a question, an issue, but at this point, I think it starts with the manufacturing plant. And I think one way they could address this is simply restrict what portions of certain IP are put into the Chinese market to avoid that very issue of IP challenges with all the other Chinese manufacturers using Tesla technology to come after them. But I do think it's good news for Tesla, because I think Tesla China could be much bigger than the rest of Tesla globally, and I think it could be awesome. The other another note that pops up is it was confirmed that on the Model 3, when the teardown was done, there are 4,000 new 2170 batteries that are sitting in the Model 3s, and basically they're confirming that there's a new battery and it performs better than the old battery or anything else on the market. And one of the nice things that was popping in my mind was just the fact that, if you had the highest density battery, when you put those batteries into the packs, everybody else has to put between 10 and 20% more batteries in, because they have low battery densities than Tesla, and it further hurts their ability to catch up with the Tesla quality of execution. So until we go to solid state, which is the next stage for everyone, I really think Tesla has a major advantage. I've also been intrigued to watch that there's a whole discussion going on of Tesla's offer to other manufacturers to allow them to use their gigacharger, their supercharger facilities. And to my understanding, particularly things like with the Leaf, the heat from that would really destroy those batteries quickly. And so they have to rebuild those sort of batteries to facilitate the ability to supercharger without burning them into a crisp. The final thing I was eager to cover today is sort of take a quick look and encourage all of you to sort of keep an eye on what's been going on with the, AP. Again, we're seeing one accident a week. There's a model from Apple that I think is really interesting, which is, as you'll recall, Apple introduced a mapping product to compete with Google. It didn't work that well, so Apple then went back to Google and apologized to customers. I'm really encouraging you guys to write notes or tweet to Elon, because I'd love to see Tesla return to the Mobileye partnership. Yes, Tesla has all this great hardware, etc., but I'd love to see a switch back to Mobileye, because most of the accidents we're seeing don't involve AP1 or Autopilot 1, because the mastery that Mobileye has, we're 1 or 2 years away from Tesla arriving there, and it'd be nice to see the Tesla customers return to that solution without any headaches. We typically have a certain length of show, but today I was really sort of fascinated by how China would play into the dialogue of what's happening with the Semi, because they already are in love with the cars and have shown it in terms of their buying. And by moving on to, from cars to semis and to a factory that they've helped construct with cost, I think it's an exciting possibility for how Tesla grows, and it could be very lucrative for the company as this occurs. So, as you know, we typically go Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. This is our Sunday show. I want to thank Peter and Jerry and our friends in Milwaukee, etc. Peter, I'm impressed that from Australia that you're always making commentary. I'd love to have you maybe drop us an email with a few photos of Teslas that you see in your marketplace kind of moving around. Also, if you have any photos of the large Tesla battery factories that are at work there, would be kind of interesting, because it's always kind of interesting to share what the commitment is to electric and how that's working globally. I have to admit, I didn't realize there are only 30 million people in Australia, but you're right. I guess you guys don't have Model 3 yet, S and X, and that definitely makes sense. As oil prices rise, I just think that there'll be a lot more people that'll be interested. The one last note I'll make, and this is from my China zone, is the fact that the #1 producer at 10,000 vehicles a month for electric vehicles is actually in China. There's actually a $25,000 vehicle that gets about 100 miles. That's a hybrid kind of between, you know, a car and a truck. And I think it's a really interesting vehicle, primarily because it's been so successful. I think it's interesting, but I think it's definitely worth a look at what they're up to. Also, I'll note that the Chinese know about quality, and they're buying Tesla products because they're getting the quality here. So I wanted to say my usual farvel in Dutch, tschüss German, au revoir French, lahitro Hebrew, hoda hafez Farsi, noch respect wak woodman in Jamaican patois. And I'm going to take you out by doing a view particularly of the capital of Alexandria, Virginia, as we go out.